Chapter 4 of Red Shoes and an Allmight Wristwatch by Lannery. Izuku barely managed to avoid detection by his mom. He had a pronounced limp and was weak and running a low-grade fever. He combined tales of food poisoning and a twisted knee and hoped that she wouldn't ask too many more questions. He might break down and confess. His entire week was disrupted. He could still study and do desk work at the gym, but it itched. Not being able to go down to the beach, he found himself more than once walking in the direction automatically after his time at the library. One day he let the instinct take him all the way. Maybe he could just move a few small things. Izuku stepped onto the sand and immediately toppled over with a swallowed scream. Even walking on sand was too much. It required extra muscles that he couldn't use. "Are you okay?" Izuku lifted his sand-covered face to find Yagi jogging over to him, concern written on his face. "Messed up my leg," he confessed. "I thought walking on the beach would be okay." The skinny man picked him up with surprising strength for his size and health. He helped Izuku back to the stairs and sat him down. "I was wondering where you'd been. What did you do to your leg?" He swallowed. It was hard lying to his mom, sure, but strangers should be easy to face with a lie. Why was he struggling with Yagi? "I twisted my knee on a school trip." "Ah," Yagi nodded sagely. "Joints are very annoying." Izuku smiled. A little at that. True. Fucking hell. "Why don't you hang out here? Let me get you a snack." "Oh, no, please." Izuku was too slow. Yagi had already disappeared. Great. So pathetic. Even a man with a cough so bad it makes him bleed feels bad for me, he muttered to himself. Can't even properly save anyone without getting injured and needing help. Should just throw myself off a building like Kachan said. Young man, you shouldn't say things like that. Young man, you shouldn't say things like that. Izuku gasped. How did you get back so quickly?" Yagi ignored his questions, setting down a drink and a mix of foods from a local mart on the stairs next to Izuku. "Would you kill yourself, young Midoriya?" Izuku ducked his head. "No," he mumbled. I was just talking to myself. It doesn't mean anything." A strong finger hooked under his chin, lifting his face until his eyes met Yagi's. Intense blue eyes searched his soul for a lie, and he felt like crying all of a sudden. "I hope not," Yagi said. "There's so much to live for, you know. For heroes." "Is that what you want to be?" Yagi let go of his chin, and it took all of Izuku's efforts not to drop his head again. "I did." "And why not anymore?" Izuku picked up his onigiri and took a bite. "I'm quirkless." "I see." Yagi placed a hand on Izuku's knee, thankfully not his bad leg. "That must be difficult." "I tried to get into UA. I thought maybe." He felt his throat begin to tighten and took a deep breath. "They wouldn't even let me take the practical exam." "That isn't very fair," Yagi said softly. Izuku snorted, dashing a hand across his eyes. "Yeah, well, they aren't wrong. What was someone like me gonna do against true villains anyway?" "What are you going to do if you can't be a hero?" Yagi asked. I'm trying to help people. Even so, it's just hard some days." The older man gestured to his leg, and that's why he nodded. Please don't tell anyone. All right. Yagi looked at him. As long as you promise you're keeping yourself safe, too. You're worth keeping alive, no matter what Kachan told you. Izuku hadn't cried in months, but a sudden sob caught his throat. He clapped a hand over his mouth, but it was too late, and suddenly he was sobbing in the arms of a stranger on the stairs of a garbage-covered beach. By the end of it, Izuku felt exhausted, leg feeling swollen and sore, and the rest of his body drained. He tried to stand up and failed. Here, kid, piggyback? Izuku stared at him in dismay. But you can't, you're conditioned. It'll be fine, I promise. Izuku swallowed. It wasn't like he would make it home on his own power. Yagi's bony hands curled under Izuku's thighs, and Izuku sucked in a breath as the knife wound throbbed. Yagi repositioned his right hand. Better? Izuku nodded. He was vaguely aware of directing Yagi where to take him, feeling himself start to drift as he rested his cheek on the surprisingly strong back. He hopefully wasn't going to kidnap or murder him. That would suck. Yagi chuckled and Izuku flushed. He hadn't meant to say that aloud. Izuku? Izuku looked up to see his mom staring at him and Yagi. Hi, Mom. He waved sheepishly. This young man looked out for me the other day, and I thought I'd return the favor. He'd gone a little too far on his bad leg. Oh, thank you so much, sir. Izuku never knows when to stop. Would you like to come in for some tea? No, thank you. I must be going. It was nice seeing you again, young Midoriya. Remember what we talked about. Izuku managed to bob his head with a quick bow. Bow. Yes, sir. Thank you. His mom sighed. What are we going to do with you, Izuku? Sorry, Mom. The pinched look on her face was because of him. I just miss you smiling, she whispered. Izuku couldn't bring himself to meet her eyes. Me too. Bon pensée. It was a couple of weeks before Izuku was able to get back to his normal routine. He still had to take it easy on his leg, but the wound was healing up well. He also started practicing doing stitches in his free time. The scar on his leg would be ugly. The recordings from Izuku's hidden mics weren't as helpful as he hoped. He did manage to determine a couple other people's quirks based on what they mentioned, and he learned the little girl's name. Eri. He whispered the name to himself whenever he got too scared or disheartened at his own progress. He was doing it all for Eri. Izuku began sketching out a plan. In a few weeks, once his leg was completely back to normal, he would sneak inside to play some more mics. If he was lucky, he'd try to get a computer into a computer or something that would give him more information. If he was very lucky and managed to avoid detection, he would try to get Eri. His stakeout done for the night, Izuku left his perch, slowly traversing the rooftops with more caution than usual. For once, he didn't let Eraserhead sneak up on him. He watched the man swing up, using his capture weapon. Long time no see, Eraserhead, he greeted. Problem child, the hero said dryly. I thought you'd gotten yourself killed. Just stabbed. Izuku grinned at the way the hero jolted. Don't worry, just a little. Eraserhead scowled. And that didn't convince you to stop this nonsense? Nope, Izuku said cheerfully. If you turn over your investigation to me, I can be sure it goes to the right people, the hero said. The man's monotone voice sounded a touch desperate. Izuku shook his head. I have no concrete evidence. It'd just be thrown out. I know some people. I appreciate that you're trying to help Eraserhead, but I have no reason to trust you. Eraserhead eyed him. I didn't turn you in. I haven't used my quirk on you. That was amusing. He held back a laugh and tried to take the man's concerns seriously. If I find anything, I'll leave it for you and where we first met, Izuku said. Is that enough? Eraserhead sighed. Sure, kid. He eyed his capture weapon. Can you get me a capture weapon? No. You're enough of a menace without it. Fair enough. He'd been practicing with knives at the gym, but he didn't want a less lethal alternative. He did want a less lethal alternative. Maybe if he caught Eraserhead off guard someday, he could steal the scarf-like weapon. I better not find you dead somewhere in an alley someday, Deku, Eraser warned. I will bring you back to life myself and kill you again. Izuku carelessly saluted and made his way as swiftly as he could across the rooftops. He had hoped to go straight home, but he had to make sure Eraserhead didn't tail him. By the time he got home, his leg was aching. That is the end of Chapter 4 of Red Shoes and Allmight Wristwatch by Linari. I am really liking this fan fiction so far. I don't think I read the tags. Tags are good. What is Wump?